What other way to start this great event but to introduce and welcome the initiative behind this incredible experience. A man who's got an outstanding resume, who has thought about the future and says, we need something like this to make sure this industry survives and becomes an incredible experience in the future. Let's welcome for our welcome address, Ngo Martins Okoma, partner Aluko Oyebode, Lagos, Nigeria, Africa Conference Law Founder, Executive Director.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 2023 edition of the Africa Construction Law Conference. ACL is a Pan-African initiative set up by construction law practitioners across Africa and in the diaspora to promote the development and dissemination of construction law knowledge and best practices in Africa, as well as to foster collaboration and networking among construction law professionals and stakeholders across the continent and beyond.
I think it's very important to talk about risk evaluation, because that's something that we see that a lot of people don't do. Risk evaluation is key at the beginning of a contract, and that helps you to plan and to mitigate.
In my part of the world, the equity people do commitment, put the money in escrows and trusts, and you cannot draw with equity at all until the banks come in. And that secures the viability of the project because they don't want their equity to be lost.
What I see that a lot of parties have considered is diversifying their suppliers. As a contractor or as an employer, if from the onset the agreement was we purchase materials from this place, now parties are beginning to look at how to, especially even look at local materials, look at certain other kind of materials that can still do the work. A lot of value engineering has also come into play. You know, looking at the practicality of, okay, the design, how can we optimize this design where we don't have to use as much materials?
I think there's no doubt that collaboration and cooperation is obviously the right thing to do for a successful delivery of a project in almost all the cases. But I think the reality of the market is still there's going to be a tendency to go for a lump sum contract where the contractor's taking a lot of the risk.
Now, I'm interested in adjudication. I understand that across Africa, there are different ways in which they deal with adjudication when it comes to resolving disputes.
I would say that the most relevant issue to address in the Lusophony is that most of the rules are foreseen directly in the law and not necessarily in the contract. So very often you have small contracts, but you have to see what is in the law, because most of the issues are foreseen directly in the law.
This issue of language is one of the main issues. The second is this common civil law.
Adjudication at this stage is purely a contractual dispute resolution process in the country. As I said earlier, we've got these 4 differing standard form construction contracts. All 4 of them provide for different adjudication processes and time periods. And when you get an adjudication award and you run to court with it, the courts should enforce those adjudication awards by ordering specific performance.
I thought it might be worth just stepping back for a moment and ask ourselves, what is the point of all those construction contracts? What are they trying to achieve? Why are they so complicated? And as I think as Dr. Nasser said this morning, why are they so long, especially the 2017 edition? And it's not just to keep us lawyers busy. I think the reality is that our industry, construction, is a bit of a special industry, isn't it?
Collaborative contracts require a very different mindset to a traditional form of contract, such as the JBCC, for example, in South Africa, or the JCT in the UK, and FIDIC kind of straddles that boundary also.
I mean, for example, an engineer ought to understand the obligations, the risks, and the interpretation of the contract. That hardly ever happens. For example, how many engineers are here? Raise your hands. Right? Now, these are the guys who are supposed to be interpreting contracts. Out of a group of 150, there's 3? 4?
Not enough.
Yeah? That's a problem.
I think Lord Denning, in one of his judgments, just said that what was important is not what you count and say. It must be records, records, and records.